this working? I'm going to be checking my mobile phone to make sure this is working. One person's here, and it's Laura Gardner. Okay, I'll just give you guys a second to join me. And then when we repost this, that we can delete this beginning bit. Yes, Rachel, hi. Oh, Christian, you're here. I'm so happy you're here. How's the little one doing? Is she doing well? I hope she's joining in. Emma, hi Emma. Okay, I'll just give you a little minute or two more and then we'll get going. I can already see a number of people that I know are parents, and that's who we're speaking to today. Make sure that this is okay. Excellent. Right, I think we'll get going. So I want to start by just saying a practical thing, which is that after however long I talk for, it's meant to be about 15 minutes, but you know me, I can talk for way too long. We're going to give you the chance to ask questions, and the way we're going to do that is not me looking at the comments down on that bottom corner, because sometimes it can just go a little bit fast and get a little bit overwhelming and confusing. So what we're going to do is have those questions collated by the wonderful Laura and Hannah who are on this thread. They will then message them to me on my phone, which is over there, and I will then reply to you. So just for you to prepare to ask questions, and you understand kind of the layout of what we're going to do, because obviously I can't see any of you. Right, so what I'd like to begin with saying is actually just a kind of congratulations and is commendation a word? To commend the parents that are here. The effort it takes to just be here and interested in a chat like that is already an unbelievable sign and step in all the right directions of supporting a child through learning an instrument. We've done 4 Zoom sectionals already over the last 2 days, and I think, well, I would be lying if I were to say that this was my favourite part, because my favourite part is, of course, seeing all of these tiny little people just concentrating so hard and being painfully cute. But second to that, the most incredible thing for me to see is the number of parents that are navigating that incredibly difficult fine line between being there to support your child and being present and being there if anything goes wrong, but at the same token, at the same time, not interfering when they want to be left alone, being able to step back. The number of faces that I have seen just like peering from behind the door, or just like creeping in and then leaving again. I mean, it's been a lot of moments of comedy, honestly, for me to see. But for us, as a group, as a foundation, for all of the tutors and musicians that I work with, to know that there is that home support and solidarity, and that there is a kind of a bedrock and a comfort there for a child doing what is, let's face it, a really, really difficult thing to do. Not just to the beginnings learning an instrument, but the consistency that it takes is just it's just wonderful and heartwarming for us to see that. And I know there are millions of actions that a parent takes that are very silent and thankless and almost go unnoticed. So I want to just begin really with such a heartfelt appreciation and congratulations to all of you for supporting your children in this journey. So I wanted to actually sort of put the question out there of just how many of you have played an instrument or have tried to play an instrument, and to just address like the difficulty of all of these sensitive parental decisions that you're all having to make anyway, coupled with the unbelievable task of managing an instrument. And for those of you who have tried to play or who perhaps are musicians, but also for all of those of you who have never tried to play, and my parents both fell into that category. Neither of them had ever tried an instrument, and although both me and my sister played Suzuki method, and of course it's strongly encouraged that the parent learn alongside, my mum never really took up that challenge. She never, I think she could just about maybe do Twinkle Twinkle, I don't know, she'd have to remind me, but she never really kind of learnt alongside us, although she was an unbelievable presence, consistent presence for both me and my sister. But just, I think that the first thing for anyone, for any teacher, anyone who is supporting somebody practicing, of course, parents and carers, but anybody who's in that other position, when you're watching somebody else play or you're trying to will them to become better at what they do or to stay dedicated or to realise that they sound good or to realise what they could improve on, it's so hard to have in your mind the experience of that person and to really step into their shoes. The oftentimes physical discomfort that a lot of people feel playing string instruments, I mean, let's not lie about the fact that they are awkward. They're awkward instruments. I mean, violin and viola in particular, you know, just the fact of how you're having to hold yourself, how unbalanced playing an instrument can feel, that physical discomfort, but also the concentration required to do so many different things at once that require such an unbelievable amount of coordination and attention to detail that it's like being fired at from all sorts of different angles at one time, and often the confusion that can set in. The confusion over exactly what to focus on, and if we all think about how the mind works, you know, you can understand how a piece of music is phrased or how it goes through so many different angles, and it's something I'm going to go on to speaking about a little bit in a little bit more detail. But we often, I mean, most of us learning instruments go through that traditional method of note reading and of looking at the page. So you have the stimulation that's coming to you from the notes in front of you, then the physical sensation of the instrument itself, and then the sound. And the sound is created by a left and a right hand that are doing entirely different things. Now, all of this, you're thinking, why am I talking about this? But it's just to bring everyone into that state of being inside of the experience. And that in order to support somebody through that is the place you want to be closest to. And I think it's something I have to remind myself all the time when teaching masterclasses, when taking tutorials or at our workshops, that I'm trying to look at the physicality and mentality of another person and work out, like, do I remember how complicated and how difficult that actually feels? So I thought what I could do would just talk through a few almost like suggestions for the things that the larger areas that can break us out of that state of overwhelmedness and confusion and physical discomfort. I just break them into a few categories that are hopefully kind of quite easy to grasp. And I think a word that we talk about a lot at the sessions themselves, because we have, you know, a weekend of morning to night, just continuous playing and activity and information being fed to the children, is the word reset. And I think if you can encourage like both yourself, if there's a moment of supporting practice, but also for young people to have that, it doesn't have to be the word reset, of course, but something that allows everyone to be in that state of okay, like everything's feeling like it's too much, and how can we break out of that? So the first one is, of course, the physicality, and a lot of people misconstrue any kind of technical work as being dry, as being something that isn't pleasurable, as being something that children don't like. And for me, the negative association there comes from it being physically horrible to do or awkward to do. Just one second, I'm just going to make sure. Okay, I'm just getting questions, no problems. Excellent, good. Okay, I'm just going to keep talking for a bit. So that physical discomfort. So I am the biggest believer ever on putting the instrument down, completely resetting your body. You'll see in all of our tutors, in their tutorials, in their actual kind of more in-depth lessons, but also all of the warm-ups and the Zoom sectionals, everywhere you will see this kind of reset, connecting to your overall physicality. We use the smallest muscles playing instruments, and therefore everything can become tighter and tighter and smaller, and actually we forget our feet are on the ground and our body is kind of weighted into the ground, and everything is connected and everything affects everything else. So a basic look at, I mean, go to any single one of the warm-ups that we've just put up, but there's a lot of things on YouTube that encourage you towards that, or also like all the things that I went through in the first with Nicky video I ever put up, the one called Back to Basics, is just trying to reconnect us with that physical, how can I feel okay in my body, strong, flexible and balanced. So a basic physical comfort should, if you're returning to the most fundamental part of that, should make technical work actually pleasurable. You start to see them not as separate things and not as something that's kind of dry and clinical and not fun. And always the reminder with anything that is associated with physicality and with technicality, that playing is so much more fun and more pleasurable when you get those things sorted. And just the last point I want to make about any technical work or physical work is to never address those things for too long. Make them really short, snappy, get a little, like 5 things, we do these 5 things with our bodies. There's millions of examples of what those could be, certainly on my page from all the tutorials and all of the warm-up videos and my own videos of examples of what those could be. But just have a checklist that does not take long and that resets your entire physicality, so that your association with that kind of physical technical work is positive and makes you feel better, makes you feel like you want to do it. So the second one is the fundamentals of musicianship. So breaking music itself, which again, the experience we have playing instruments is this kind of massive mix of so many different things that go into one place, that what you hear, what you feel, all of that, break it down into really clear categories. Like, what is the rhythm of this thing? What is the melody do? Like, the rhythm you can feel and act out in your body. Anybody can clap, stomp, dance, embody the rhythm in a really physical, overt way that's, again, getting away from the smallness of playing your instrument. Melodies make us feel emotion. Like, all of us sing a melody at some point. I don't care who you are. All sorts of people tell me on a daily basis how tone deaf they are, but everybody can relate to singing a melody and feeling that compulsion to sing a melody. Why do we want to? It's because it associates us with a feeling and makes us connect to the insides of our emotional state a certain way. And then, especially for the younger kids, but for all young people playing, texture and effects. The texture of playing, whether something is really loud or more kind of scratchy, or whether it's more kind of like sweet and soft or ethereal, all of these things, it's like you're colouring in something that's otherwise just black and white or grey. It's like you're actually bringing it to life if you create those textures. So the third thing is, I've kind of called it genuine creativity, but I guess it's all the things that we forget about when we are consumed and overwhelmed by all the do's and don'ts of playing in tune, in time, not scratching, how to do vibrato. There's like a set number of categories of very sort of like more clinical things that we kind of try to get right in order to sound good on an instrument. And the whole area of music and music making that we literally forget about, we can forget about them for months or on end, is the fact that, so far as I understand, music is intended to express something and to tell a story. Like, we're actually meant to be relating things to our personal feelings, and that those feelings come out through sound, and also to do with your imagination. The act of stepping into the mind of somebody who wrote a song or wrote a piece of music, you're stepping into that mind and using your imagination of what were they thinking of, and what can I think of during this time, and how can I make up some scenario, and all the things that make you connect in a much more fluid and a natural sense of what music's purpose is. That it takes your brain outside of those clinical places that it can occupy when playing an instrument, and takes you into a world of fantasy and imagination, and genuine creativity. So, like, for me, that area often takes a back step, because we all think we're doing the right thing by preparing for an exam, and for having all of the boxes ticked of playing this well and doing this well, and making sure that we've learnt the piece from memory, and we've got to the end of it, and we've read the notes correctly, and oh my goodness, the checklist of things that we have to do right and that we can do wrong are endless. But if I would venture to say that if we forget about the creativity and the storytelling and the ability to express, and therefore be in a state of like when your child comes home from school and is desperate to tell you a story. We should have some of that feeling in us when we play our instruments. Like, I'm just dying for you to know what this is all about. Let me tell you. If we take away those things, I kind of feel like what's the point? We could be doing lots of other things that don't rely on creativity and expression in order to come to life. So I cannot emphasize that enough. I want to say just a little aside about exams, because a lot of parents ask about exams. Now, my personal experience was that I didn't do any exams until I was 8 or 9 years old, and I just did my grade 8. And that was the advice. I was studied with the Suzuki teacher, Brenda Smith. That was what she advised both me and my sister. Neither of us did any exams before that point. But we had goals, consistent goals, per week, per month, per term. We were always working towards something. And that thing that we were working towards could be playing for our uncle who was coming to visit next week. But it was always something that was that kind of we were headed in a direction that made us feel like what we were doing had that kind of pull along with it, like we were really headed towards something. And I think that had huge amounts of positive impact on me and my sister. And I would also venture to say I'm not going to be against exams in any way, but to be working towards something that puts you in an environment where you are focused predominantly on entertaining is the wrong word, but on communicating a message of expression and of music and musicality. If that's what you're working towards, your mindset is perhaps different from one that you're going to be marked on, and there are things that are going to be definitely right or wrong. So I think to balance any preparation for exams with regular and consistent goals that are fun, that are enjoyable, that are things that children will look forward to doing, I would highly recommend a nice balance of those things. So I want to just take a minute to talk about my mum, actually, because she didn't play instruments. She didn't play any instrument. She was desperate to play the piano when she was young, absolutely dying to ask her mum, but knew her parents could not afford it, so just kept her mouth shut and didn't ask for piano lessons. But just a word on how my mum structured the experience of development in playing an instrument for both my sister and I. She was somebody who didn't believe in us doing a million things at once. So she was really quite strict, didn't say, oh, just do whatever you like. So, we would come home from school probably every day saying, well, we saw somebody do this, we want to do that, we want to do this. She encouraged us to choose something and develop some resilience towards those moments when you want to give up, because anything that is challenging that you want to do and you want to do well is not going to be all fun and games. It's not going to be completely an easy or smooth journey. So I from speaking to my mum a lot over the years about how she judged that, the best kind of explanation that she can come up with is that she was always looking out for, did me and my sister actually have love for this thing? Did we have love for playing, love for the instrument, and love for music? And if we did, and she could see that we consistently did, then she felt comfortable to push us to be disciplined, to play every single day, to have a routine, to not give up when things were difficult, and to push ourselves through those difficult times. But it takes the combination of you need the love in there somewhere. If you don't have that feeling towards playing, it's maybe something that you should question whether it is the right thing. But what I do want to say, that if you're at that kind of impasse with your child, where you're at a point where you think, they're just fighting back a lot and they're constantly saying, no, I don't want to do it, and you're saying, but you're good at doing it, you should do it. One thing that I do want to, before being in any way flippant about a decision of not pursuing that, I would say that there's a sort of little checklist of things which provide different, channels into how you connect with your instrument that's perhaps not the route that they're currently taking. So the first one being an inspirational figure that they find that's perhaps not a parent or a teacher. So someone that they can grasp hold of. And I will say that, if you're parents that are not musicians, you will have to really look for those people. Now we have the beauty of Facebook, of Instagram, but quite often all of these things are controlled by cookies. So if you're not quite often, we know they're all controlled by cookies, meaning like they're what you're surrounded by is something that is tailored to you. So you do have to search for those inspirational figures, and for those ones that your child can connect to and feel a sort of trust and familiarity with, that is perhaps different to how they view a parent or a teacher. That can be a real breakthrough moment for a lot of young people. And then try different ways to approach the instrument. If you look at what Richard Michael did yesterday, insisting that we do not go and get the sheet music, despite how many people were writing and saying, I can't do this because I can't see the music. And he's sitting there going, that's the point, you're not meant to see the music. Or for example, what Lucinda was doing today, tapping into the fundamental ways that the brain works. The way that our brain understands shapes, understands rhythm, understands how things fit together. These kind of fundamental building blocks of music making that are actually tailored to, and of course Kodai is probably the most incredible example of a system that's not tailored to those of us who are most musically natural and adept. It's tailored to the mind of everyone. So look for those other ways that can perhaps be another way in to your child's connection with music, or whoever you're the person you're supporting and practicing. And then finally, I was going to mention what Lucy Drever did today, which is back to what I was talking about earlier regarding storytelling and creativity, and a sense of imagination that is yours and yours only, and exists within your mind and can be personal. It doesn't even have to be shared with anybody, but to try to inspire that imagination in the mind of a young person that is perhaps thinking of giving up music, and actually that can be a place for you to be in another world, inhabiting another space that is a comfort to you and that's an inspiration to you, and that is has that positive impact. So I think I covered most of what of course I spoke for 25 minutes, not for 15. I'm absolutely not surprised. So I have a number of questions here quite a few questions. Okay, so anybody that wants to remain for longer than the 30 minutes, I am totally happy to do that, and I will just hang out here unless I'm kicked off Facebook, which I hope I'm not. I'll just hang out here for a little bit longer to try to get through the questions that I have been asked. Right, question number 1 from Sarah. At what stage would you recommend starting a second instrument? Well, I played the piano when I was young, and we started perhaps a year after starting to play the violin, and I thought I was quite good. I went in for my grade 2 or 3 piano at the same time as I went in for my grade 8 violin. I thought my grade 8 exam had gone not very well and ended up getting a really high mark. I thought my piano exam had gone great and ended up like just scraping past the merit mark, because I did not do well on my piano exam. The 2 girls who have written our Paganini 24th arrangement, Laura and Sarah Ayub, they both play a string instrument and both play piano, and can dabble in all sorts of instruments, and I see their general musicianship aptitude through having played lots of different instruments. That said, to progress in tandem can be an added layer of complication. So I would say that once you have that physicality that is like, you pick up your instrument that is your first instrument and you feel like you're at home with it, and actually what you're now working on is the developing of like adding on to that fundamental bass, then I would say any point after that point is a good time to learn to play a second instrument. Generally speaking, I would say if you're playing a string instrument, I would advise everyone to learn to play the piano. I wish I had done that better and earlier, and I had been more dedicated to it, so I'm not an example to go by. Okay, so second question from Amy, spelled A-I-M-E-E. I have a 6-year-old, she is super keen but sometimes struggle to practice with their violin and stay calm with it. So any advice for a mum keen to support while juggling work and lockdown? I mean, first of all, solidarity from all of us and good luck. But I would say definitely go back to review a lot of the things that I have been saying today, because and also check out the Facebook chat that Rachel Cooper did that was specifically for parents, which will be in our Facebook thread, and we should try to put that on YouTube actually. Message out to Foundation guys, let's definitely do that, because she went through a very detailed checklist, I think, that was targeting mostly the kind of younger children. But I would say, if you have a daily routine that is not long, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it is something that's extremely colourful and varied. So for these first 3 minutes, we're going to do this warm-up, and it's going to be like this, and it's going to be extremely vivacious, and a lot of movement and a lot of activity. And then what we're going to do is focus purely on sound, and that sound also has its own colour, and it has its own feeling, and it has its own vibration, which is one of just calmness and sonority in the sound. Then we're going to just make sure that these fingers are just all kind of active, and try this and try that. And also just to say, and this is in no way elevating the materials that we've put up against anybody else's, because there are so many incredible videos out there for supporting people through practice, but to have a friend on a screen that is working alongside you, I think just takes away a lot of that pressure from a parent like you, Amy. And there was another thing I was going to say. What was it? That you should... oh goodness, I can't remember. Oh, something really good. Oh, it'll come to me. Anyway, it was reminding me of something somebody else said, but I can't think of it right now. I hope that is somewhat useful. Okay, so... right. I used to play the guitar years ago. Can't read music, would love to learn. Is it possible in an adult? What do you think? From Catherine. Of course it's possible to learn, and it is most definitely possible to learn to play the guitar. There are probably more tutorials for the guitar than any other instrument online, but of course it is possible to learn. I would start off with as many basics videos as you can find. It's of course better if you can find a teacher that you can have regular lessons with, perhaps once a week to start going. But I would say absolutely go for it. And from Tracy, what should we say to our 11-year-old who is grade 5 cello, who thinks she is no good? I mean, if you're 11 and you're playing grade 5, I don't know what more you want from playing the cello. That's an incredibly high level to get to at that age and that stage. Now, so many people that work with us talk about the balance of being self-critical, which naturally comes if you're trying to get good at something. If you're trying to improve, you're trying to tap into all the things that you've been told that are not good, and you're trying to work out, how can I be better at those things? So that involves a level of judgment and criticism of how you sound that is natural. But you must, and I cannot stress this enough, and this is for teachers, parents, students of all ages, you must balance that hand in hand every step of the way with a building of confidence. That means you play from beginning to end of the piece. You tell yourself beforehand, I don't care how this sounds. I am not going to judge myself. I'm going to get to the end. I'm going to stay free. I'm going to stay fluid. I am not going to be in that state of just like, was this right? Was that right? Was it? You just refuse to do it. It takes discipline to not criticize yourself, but you must do it. So this message that I'm saying just now is actually for the daughter of Tracy. So please believe me. And I'm somebody who struggled with a lot of confidence issues, thinking I'm not good enough. Every round of the BBC Young Musician of the Year, which I ended up winning, was me walking off stage thinking, well, of course that was a disaster. It is not. A good friend of mine and mentor says, don't say out loud all the time that you're not good at something. It has a detrimental effect. So you have to work on the process of imitation too. If you say to yourself 15 times, this is what I sound like on the cello and I'm comfortable with this. Say it 15 times in a week, then say it 35 times the next week, then build on that state of acceptance of yourself, that there'll be some things that you don't do well, and that's fine. We've all got things we're good at, all got things we're less good at. So work on that as well, and in tandem, as well as trying to improve your instrumental playing. Right, so any tips for a child who gets very upset if she can't get everything perfect immediately? All the same things. You have to just tap into a state that is saying, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. I'm going from here to here. I'm making it to the end of this thing, and it doesn't matter what happens. And I would say, you've got to ride the balance of being resilient against forces around you that may make you hyper aware of things that don't go wrong, because that is a part of life. You cannot protect every child from criticism or from feeling like they don't do something well. It's going to happen at some point, and it's painful no matter when it happens. So I think the people that deal with that best are those who bring in a lot of humor when things go wrong. The people that I know that are the greatest teachers and often a lot of the greatest musicians, they have that sense of humour towards something. If it doesn't go right, it's not the end of the world. We are not going to be, severely damaged from one thing going wrong. So to get that perspective is and to bring humour into it is incredibly important. Tips for parents who wait 1 second, I'm getting confused what I've said. Okay, for parents who are not musicians, to help motivate their children who are talented to progress and achieve top results. I think I've probably covered a lot of that, but if you can see that your child is really talented, one thing I would say my mother was incredible at doing, I don't call her my mother, my mum was incredible at doing was anything you don't have the answer to, ask. Everywhere, anywhere, find out. Somewhere in your local vicinity, but now with the powers of online communication, to find out who. Take your child to a concert with somebody that plays really well. Try to go and see them afterwards and ask them, can you recommend a teacher, or can you recommend something in my area? If you don't ask, you'll never know. So I would say unbelievable amounts of like active curiosity, because it may be obvious to us who is doing great teaching in a certain area, where the music service is, and how to get into that activity, or where to go to concerts, or which orchestras. That may be obvious to us, but it can be an insular world, the classical music world and the instrumental playing world, to kind of get into and have that connection with. So I would say that is to ask as many questions as possible. You will get one lead that leads to another, that leads to another, and it's amazing how helpful people become when you put them in the position of being the helper. Okay, so young people practicing on their own. Do I need to be in the room while my child is practicing? She is 10, around grade 5. That's from Morag. I would say that that you don't. It's actually, it can be really beneficial and really good to allow a child to practice on their own, but I think there's a delicate balance. Rachel Cooper talked a lot about this in her session, which was about creating the right kind of environment, a non-distracting environment for your child, but one that's kind of calm and focused. But what I would say is that if you're worried about leaving them alone, make a pact with each other. Decide that you're going to do 15 minutes of work, and you've got a little plan for what those 15 minutes are, and that it is graspable, simple. You've not been over ambitious per day, and keep it regular. You know, if you've got, like, we had a time per day that we would pick up our violin, we would practice for that length of time. You know, we were probably practicing longer than a lot of young people, but still it was, you know, it was a regular thing, and there was a structure to it that we could grasp hold of. So I think as long as you've got those things set up, then you're good. Okay, so when is a good stage for a young violinist to join an orchestra? I think as long as I think join young. To have children's orchestras, local youth orchestras, that feeling of collective music making, I'll never forget it. When I heard, you know, however many it was, like 100 people making a sound at once, it is the most shocking, overwhelming, incredible experience. And even if everyone's playing a bit out of tune and scratching, it's still an amazing experience. So from Christian, any advice for a household where the younger or two violinists get frustrated because she wants to be doing the same thing as the older one? I mean, obviously I have that experience because I was learning alongside my sister. I think my mum kind of always balanced that pretty well, but the good thing was that we both began playing together, so we were sort of learning things at the same time. I mean, I think for the older one to serve as if you keep practicing, you will do this in a year's time, you will do this in 2 years' time, you might even do it sooner than that, the more you practice and the more you're diligent with it. So to be serving as an inspiration is the best thing. 3 more questions. Any advice to encourage a shy girl who's naturally musical but worries she's not good enough and won't join an orchestra, even though she'd know you know that she would love it once she's there? That's from Lynn. I mean, let me think. It's really hard to advise on particular personal cases because you just can't. You just don't. Everybody has that barrier point. I've misjudged that sometimes myself when I've had a whole group of young people in front of me, and I've thought, right, if I just insist upon a participation from somebody who's perhaps sitting there glum or doesn't want to join in, then I'll be able to kind of snap them out of that. You know, I've misjudged it several times, and people have ended up, you know, in tears and upset and whatever else. But I think, well, you know what, I think that this type of experience I've noticed for a lot of young people that are shy, and I have many, you know, students or people that have come to concerts or relatives or all sorts of people that are shy that actually don't necessarily like the big get together. It makes them nervous and it makes them worried, and they feel like they're being judged and too self-conscious. This type of environment where you are able to realize, like for example in the Zoom sectional, that there's 400 other people doing what you're doing, but you have the comfort of your own space, I think it's actually a really excellent first step in realizing that it's okay and that we all do these things together and that everybody feels a little bit insecure. I guess, you know, I would say one thing that my mum told both me and my sister when we went to study at like specialist music schools. She said, we are, yes, Mandy, she said, we are making the decision together that you're going to do this. You can come home anytime. It's fine. There is no pressure or obligation. So I think it's balancing that authority of, no, I'm making the decision that you're going to go to this thing, but then always knowing that there isn't that intense fear of being trapped or stuck. And for me, I think that is the best, you know. It's tricky. I'm pausing so much because I'm really trying to imagine your daughter. Okay, so did my mother practice with me when I was young? Sometimes it was a balance. My mum was always running around doing a million things, so sometimes she was there, sometimes she was not. So I think we've probably come to the end of this session. What am I doing? I'm pressing this thing. But the reason I definitely have to stop is because I'm on a laptop that is on 5% battery. But anyway, it's getting a little bit late, so I just want to thank you all so much for joining us. For everyone who's participating in the virtual sessions, signed up, not signed up, there is just so much more content that we are all working on a daily basis to make available to you all. Please keep going back to the YouTube playlists. We're continually trying to work out how to communicate with you all as best as possible and to signpost, because there are so many things going on and so much to choose from. One general word, which is don't give up on those creative sessions. Please participate in those. For just a little summary of how they work, Lucy did that for us all this morning, so go back and check that video. Everything will be uploaded on YouTube. As much as we can fit onto the website will be up there too. I want to just thank every single parent for being here and for supporting your children through this experience. We hope to be an ally for you and for your child, and you know, to be a kind of second family. So thank you all so much, and I will be back doing something else very soon. I can't even remember what it was, what's next, but it will be tomorrow anyway. So thank you all. Take care. Good night.